Hi friends, today we're going to be taking some simple pieces of scrap wood and transforming them into beautiful home decor. And you can definitely apply these ideas when you're upcycling thrifted finds. Project number one is a quick and easy project. I took the scrap piece of pine, sanded the entire piece with 220 grit sandpaper, applied some Waverly antiquing wax, and checking out the options for what I can use as a stencil. This will work and it's the right size. I took some chiffon cream chalk paint and some acrylic white paint from Apple Barrel, mixed them together. Using a stencil brush, I apply the paint on in layers very lightly. I like to use a sponge brush, but I didn't have any. What type of brush do you guys like to use or for your stencils? I then went over a few areas using a toothpick to fill them in. Now I took a brad nail and hammered it right in on the side. I formed a little wreath from a pipberry swag that I cut off of. And that gives us one option. And then you can remove it. And I made a bow from wired ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree years ago. I added some white pip berries around the center of the bow, and that's what I'm locking into place on the nail. What do you guys think? Let me know. I would like to try a Christmas version of this sign. I think there's quite a few possibilities for it. Project number two. These I actually purchased at a yard sale for 50 cents each, but it's a simple pattern that I think that we could cut out using our jigsaw, even if we don't have any tools to do the decorative edging. So I sanded all 4 pieces, and this is my homemade salt mixture, take one. I'm going to apply one thick coat onto each board, and I'm going to do that on one side, the back, and the front, because we're going to be gluing 2 of these together to make bookends. I'm applying the paint in several different directions to create texture. I definitely didn't stir the paint well enough because the salt kind of sits down at the bottom of the jar, but that's okay. I think I got some good texture for the first try. I did have to let these pieces dry overnight because it was extremely humid. So the next morning I apply 1 coat of the white acrylic paint, let that dry, and then apply another once the first one had dried. Then I took some 80 grit sandpaper and went over the entire piece, and then applied wood glue to each set, let that dry, and there you have them. And they stand up very well on their own because they're thick enough, and they make great bookends or display pieces. I'd like to make a set and use the antiquing wax on it, but I thought they'd look cute for a little wreath display. You can even stack them on top of one another for a little riser. Maybe you could even add feet. You could apply ink stamps on the side and make a design using a DIY transfer, maybe a water slide decal. Project number 3 was one I did 2 years ago. I made this little table as an art table for my daughter. She wanted to be able to sit down on the floor and have her supplies. So all this took 2 18-inch wooden crates that I got from Michael's, and I believe this is a 6-foot pine board from Lowe's. Wood glue, clamps to hold that board on because I did let it dry for 24 hours. The first step was to sand it and then apply the glue. It is extremely sturdy. When she gets older, I'll add 2 more crates on to the bottom and it will become a little bench. I did not apply any sealer in case she wants to paint it or stain it someday. For project number 4, I took 1 coat of the salt wash mixture and painted that on to a scrap of pine wood. Then I took chiffon cream, mixed it with the moss from Waverly. And I'm not sure if you guys can see the texture. See how nice and bumpy it is. And I sanded it with some 120 sandpaper. And look at all that beautiful detail. I love it. And you can see everything all the way down to the natural wood. You could apply a sealer first over the wood if you didn't want that to show through. I printed this bird image out on regular copy paper, and I found it over in the fall birds section over on the graphicsfairy.com. I'm tearing it and cutting it to try to cut out some of the white and then applying it on with a thin coat of Mod Podge. Using a piece of saran wrap or a plastic bag to smooth out the bubbles. I forgot to grab one, so I just used some paper towel that I had handy. I thinned out both of the strands of pip berries by removing a few, and then wrapped some twine around 3 times, tied that in the middle, tucked the pit berries in and made sure that I cut the bottom wires off and then rounded them over so that there were no sharp edges. And then I complete the process on the other side. Then I hot glued some of the lace ribbon that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, cover the front where I tied on the twine. We'll be sealing the entire piece with 2 coats of the matte sealer from Rust-Oleum because I did print that paper out on an inkjet printer. And if I were to use a liquid sealer, it would probably smear the ink. But you could apply that with any type of DIY transfer. For project number 5, you're going to use some 2x4 wood scraps or smaller, some acrylic paint, a paintbrush, wood glue, and clothespins. My kids are going to make picture holders. I did sand each board down, and some had already been painted black previously. They applied 2 coats of the acrylic paint, which covered it up. And these are the ones that my son made, but you could stain them and put stencils on the front. These are the fun, beachy, kitty ones that my daughter made. For kids, they could even put stickers on. But this is a nice, fun, quick, easy project that costs nothing to make. And you could even get a long 2x4 and put a lot of clips on and display your Christmas cards. Friends, if you're enjoying today's video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that share button for me. So project number 6 I started months ago and sadly lost a lot of the footage, but it's just a pine board. It was painted black. I went over and painted it white with chalk paint, sanded around the edges, then glued on a clay mold that I made with stone colored clay, which is linked below. If you'd like to see more projects where I use this technique, I will link them on at the end of this one. I painted a metal clip using multi-purpose acrylic paint from Apple Barrel, and then I painted a little white shelf that was repurposed off from something else. Next step was to drill 2 holes up at the top, and I'm going to take some vintage lace so that way we'll be able to hang this piece. After I got the lace thread through, I did a triple knot on either side, trimmed the edge, made sure that the lace was all even, and then used a dab of hot glue to hold each side down. I found 2 more bird images that I really liked over at thegraphicsfairy.com. That was in the fall bird section, and I printed them out on cardstock and applied some antique wax around the edges to create an aged look. I thought a little simple piece like this would be nice to change out with the seasons or the holidays. Be sure to let me know what your ideas are for some of these different projects and what you'd like to try and do differently. Now, project number 7 to me is a complete fail. But I think that the idea was there, just the execution of it was awful. I wanted to cut out a bird, so I made a pattern very quickly. Of course, he's a little too short and wide, but that's okay. I'll try to make a template in the future, and when I get the right one, I will share it with you guys. But in the meantime, if you want to try this, there's many free bird templates that I saw on Pinterest. I just didn't click on any of them. I'm applying 1 coat of the textured saltwater paint, and then I applied 1 coat of the white paint and sanded it. And even though, again, it looks textured, it's so nice and smooth, and I thought this would look really cool with some of the IOD stamps. So I used rose toile and a couple other stamps that I had to decorate the bird. In the spring, I would definitely like to get a scroll saw to be able to make smaller wooden birds, but you could also make your own pattern or find one online, and you could even make a bird out of fabric and apply the stamps onto the fabric. My thought was, when I was making the pattern, to make him with his tail down so that way he would sit on the shelf properly and not fall off. But humble beginnings sometimes, and you got to start somewhere. But I thought that I would share the idea with you guys and let you run with it and create something beautiful. Here are the 2 videos that I mentioned earlier that shows how I did the clay molds. The one on the left is scrapwood projects, and the one on the right is going to be upcycled and vintage finds. Friends, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Have a super blessed week, and I will see you soon.